once again, it's nice to meet all of you. My name is Cassandra. I'm the head of operations here at AFWAG. And what that means for AFWAG is I'm responsible for making sure that the team has all the tools and systems that they need to be able to keep the machine moving, so to speak. And with me, I have Mercy from my team as well, who is my favorite, what do you say, left hand. She makes sure that I am able to do what I'm supposed to do. I've lost the presentation.
Let me just put it right back on. Apologies for that.
In light
we should
of this,
also go through how to better use Zoom when we're collaborating without having many hitches, and there's 36 people on the call. One
no
moment.
problem. I guess part of the training is when you're having a tech hitch, you'll maintain calm.
Yeah, that one is definitely needed. Okay, I hope I'm back on the screen.
You are. Thank you. And we can
Okay.
go to table of contents. Today, thank you everyone for your patience. I'm going to talk about why tech is important in operations in your businesses or organizations. I'm going to talk about a few key categories in which you'll find various tools that we use on a day-to-day basis in our different organizations. They tend to be a standard series of tools. Then I'll take us through what to consider when we're building out our toolkits for our organizations, and a small interactive exercise to demonstrate how this would work practically. And then we can run through any questions everybody here has and talk about our next steps. Next slide. So why tech and why does it help operations? I'm sure everybody here already signing into the call is experiencing and has experienced tech in one way or another in their businesses. And in the world that we live in today, it's really quite inevitable that we're going to use tech, even though you find that some of your organizations may have a heavy field presence, depending on what your organization does and how your teams operate. But in general, the standard principle is that tech exists to make things more efficient, to take off manual tasks where they can be automated. It enhances collaboration in your teams and allows you to be able to scale your business without necessarily increasing more costs. A great example is, imagine if you had a reproductive health organization in a community somewhere in the rural area, and you track your patient data manually using paper forms, filing in cabinets the way we used to in the past, or maybe still do depending on where you are. You might find that this is time consuming, can expose you to making errors, is a bit slow, and can be hard to look back through to analyze different trends and data from all the work that you're doing, and apply the same principle to any other type of organization that you may be in. For example, AFWAG and our alliance members, it would be much harder to kind of keep track of you guys if we were writing down everything on paper and like manually filing, especially because we're so broadly distributed across the continent. So also imagine if this organization that's tracking reproductive health moves to using Excel, for example, or Google Sheets, or even a database. That enables you to collect the information more consistently. You can share it easier. You can look at the insights. And if you have one person who's good at doing all those things, then you're also saving yourself a lot of staff time and team resources. And you can also look at different trends in your data. You can play around with it as you learn your way around Excel, Google, or any other analytical tools that you have. So depending on the type of organization you have, the application of tech can actually make your operations much, much easier. Next slide. So when you're looking at your operational needs, every organization is unique, and not all not all solutions fit everybody equally. So you kind of have to understand your different pain points. Where do you need tech the most, and how do you use it to alleviate any of the challenges you might be experiencing? For example, you might find your challenges in communication. If you have a broadly based team that's in the field or remote working like we are at AppWag, or moving around a lot, communication might be the pain point. It could be collaboration, where you're all working on different things, but somehow aren't quite on the same page. Or it could be task or project management, where you have complex things that you're working on and kind of need to be able to have it all in one place to have a sense of who's working on what's the progress, what needs to be done, what actions depend on each other. And these are all examples of use cases of different buckets of operational areas of your business that you may need tech to intervene. So in terms of your various organizations, it would be great to assess what unique requirements you have for yourselves to be able to understand what tools you might need to address those needs. So like I mentioned, for the rest of the session, we'll be looking at what these tools are and how they may help you. Next slide. So for different categories, I like to think about them in these broad four. There may be more or less for your organizations, depending on what you work on and what you do. But these are pretty common across most organizations. So you'll have communication, where you use things like WhatsApp, Zoom, like we are today, Google Meet, which is within Google Workspace. Other types of communication tools include Slack, if you've come across it. SMS is also, I don't know if you guys ever had group SMS things, but those used to exist, FaceTime and all those things. Second bucket is collaboration. And by collaboration, I mean how you work within your organizations and how the teams interact. So Google Workspace, broadly, an available platform that offers various types of collaboration tools, including the, Google Slides, like what we're using today, Google Docs, which allows people to work on all these things together, same as Google Sheets and the rest. Similarly, there's Microsoft, which is, I'd say, a different system altogether, but kind of the same in principle. They have a sharing collaboration space. They have all these different applications. And there's also Notion, which is a newer platform that has come, I think, in the past 5 years or so, which essentially takes all these different types of applications and it's just in like one place that's kind of like a website where you can customize how you build your collaboration spaces, whether it's Word documents or project management tools, or if you want to build out some kind of Excel sheets. And we call them Excel sheets the way we call Excel anything that you work numbers on. But what I mean is where you actually use your numbers. For project and task management, this is how your team collaborates, not so much the where, and when you're addressing various projects in your organizations. So looking at, again, Google Workspace as the easiest place to build out your project plan. They've just developed templates, not just, but they've improved their templates on building out project plans. You can use Google Keep, which is kind of where you have your reminders and things straight out of your emails. I find that to be very useful. Use Google Tasks, which is also automated reminders. You have some specific project management platforms like Asana and Trello. Both of them differ in complexity in terms of what you need. So if you have a team that's a bit more advanced in project management, you can choose one over the other based on your requirements, but both of them exist to provide a collaboration space specifically for project management. And the last category is data and CRM tools. So essentially your dashboards and where your customer relationship management is happening, if that's a tool that you use. So you'll find, for example, like at AFWAG, we have a huge database of members and potential members that we track currently on Sheets that we will be migrating to Notion, because Notion might be an easier space to manage a database that can kind of automate across various spaces. You may opt for more sophisticated CRMs if you have the resources and the expertise within your organizations to run these. It could be HubSpot, which basically manages profiles of different organizations, and you can kind of track who you're speaking to, what your next steps are, any information about what they do. And same for Salesforce, which is honestly very complicated. So again, it depends. You can choose your tools based on, one, what you need it for, and two, the complexity that you need, plus the experience you have in your organization. Next. So keeping those considerations and classifications of tech tools in mind, when you're thinking about building what we call a tech stack, but is a tech toolkit, is essentially first identifying your needs, and then how much can you spend on it. There's a lot of resources out there as well, and a lot of discounted resources, which we'll get to. But essentially, the recommendations that we have at AFWAG and that the principles that we run on ourselves is keeping things affordable. Initially, I say basic just to understand if the tool actually addresses your needs, and then you can kind of adjust it into a more sophisticated system as you go along. And how can it help you scale? So as we build out our database, for example, as AFWAG, Excel or Google Sheets worked really well for the first, let's say, 50 to 100 members. But as we're looking to scale to 1,000 members, is that still the right tech tool to use? Or should we consider using something a little bit more automated that integrates and works well with the other spaces that we collaborate on? So as I mentioned, the team is currently learning how to use Notion, just to make that a bit easier. And so that even as we grow, we're not managing just an Excel sheet, we're managing a proper database. And when you're looking at these resources, it would be great to consider your budgets. In some cases, it's great to make the investment because the tool might be saving you a lot of team time, but also creating a lot of efficiency that drives the mission of your business. So it could be the game changer that you need to free you up to actually focus on your mission while your operational systems are kind of working for you, if that makes sense. An example we have at AFWAG is we've automated our HR system. So we don't have a HR team per se, but we are using a tool called Bamboo HR that allows us to kind of have most of the functionalities of a people operations team without actually having a people operations team. So I don't think I linked Bamboo in this, but I'll add it just so that you can have it later to have a look at. There are other options as well. And what that does is it frees up the AFWAG team from managing people operations admin to managing culture instead, which is more strategically a focus point. And that's one way you can redirect your priorities by using tech. As you're thinking about what kind of tools you have, it would be great to research to see if they provide nonprofit discounts, considering a lot of us are in the social impact space. And a lot of times you will be eligible, I've pleasantly found. So it never hurts to kind of Google and just see, hey, I want to use Google Workspace. Do they offer nonprofit discount? The great news is they do, significant ones. And same for a lot of the other tools that we're currently using. I've also provided a link to a resource called TechSoup, which is essentially an organization that has consolidated all these resources that you can access at a discount. So I shared some links, but also do your research as you look at the different things that you need. In terms of best practice of how to apply tech to be efficient in your organization, I think it's important to think about what are your actual processes and how your organization operates, and then look at the tools that you want to use and avoid overlapping them. So for example, and I'm going to use AFWAG a lot because we're all here to learn together, is we initially had both Google Workspace and Microsoft 365, which do the same thing. The difference is Microsoft works best when people are using laptops or PCs that have Windows, because your applications will be Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, etc. But at the same time, because of cloud-based services like Google Workspace, we didn't actually need both systems. So we had to make a choice based on several things like, how do we collaborate as a team? What are the pros and cons of each of those, Google Workspace versus Microsoft? What are the costs? Because it's great to, one, save costs, but also make sure you're not saving cost at the expense of efficiency. So comparing that as well. And then where are the discounts? At the end of the day, after some kind of assessment, we found that Google Workspace worked really well for us. It could be the same for you, or it could be different, but we had to choose and then migrate. So a lot of the team now is working off directly the cloud services provided by Google Workspace, and we've saved the discounted rate on Microsoft and direct most of our resources now to Google Workspace, which is saving us money. Other things to think about are the guidelines of how to use these tools. So a lot of them will need you to have a licensed number of users, for example. And depending on why you have that tool, you'll have to think about who in your organization should have a license versus who should be maybe a free access user. And another example here would be a project management tool we're using as AFWAG, which is highly discounted, but still charges us for individual licenses. And so we have to decide, for example, who is the primary user of this tool. It's a project management tool called Asana. Who are typical project leaders in the organization? They should be licensed, and then you can have the rest of the team assigned to the project as free seat users. And that way everybody benefits from the collaborative space of Asana, but it's costing you less as an organization, if that makes sense. And the last thing is involve the team. So everybody loves tech, especially Abba on the call. But everybody loves tech, or some people take a longer time to adjust to tech than others. Essentially, when you're introducing a tech tool to your organization, many times you'll be making this decision as the key business owner or key responsible person for your operational systems. And sometimes you'll need to explain to the team and kind of guide them along the journey to, one, get their input on what do they use on a day-to-day basis. What does a change to tech mean for them? Will they actually use the tech? How do you hold their hand to get them to learn how to use it or introduce it to them in a way that they're able to accept it and learn how to? So involving the team from, I'm thinking about changing a manual process to a tech platform, to actually doing the switchover to tech. It's important that they are with you along the way so that they do understand the why and the how. And that way you get the most out of the team as well when you're adopting these tech tools. Next slide, please. As we look at the next one, I see everyone saying hi and their favorite apps. Just checking to see if there are any questions I can answer before I keep moving. I think the tools are good, but the issue of skill gaps, like using Power BI. Adam, that's a great question. I presume you mean introducing platforms that people will have gaps in terms of understanding or being able to use. Is that what you mean? Feel free to unmute if you can. Or if you can't, that's okay. I presume you do mean some tools will be a little bit complicated to use. And I think that's the power in having a network like AFWAG, where someone in this alliance will know how to use Power BI. And I think leveraging each other to learn practically, or like Matot is suggesting in the in the chat, there are free courses that you can access to kind of upskill yourself. I learn very practically myself. So when I do come across a complicated type of tool, YouTube has been very helpful in finding tutorials and also guides to kind of provide us with how to adopt new tools. An example I can share is we're looking at a new CRM platform, hopefully to support the development team. And I'm the only person who's used it before. So I did find a playlist of different guideline videos and how-to videos and shared it with the team. And as they explore, they're kind of learning how to do it. Understandably, data tools can be a bit more complicated, but in this slide, you see this resource called TechSoup. It also gives you access to experts who can provide you with training at sometimes discounted or free, depending on the eligibility of your organization. On the other hand, like I mentioned, within the Alliance, I think we can always check with each other to see if there's a member or someone in AFWAG who has been exposed to these tools that can kind of provide a training, because we're all here to learn together. Any questions so far as I catch my breath? Or further comments? Okay, I don't see any. Okay. I think before I even dive further into this slide, I'd just like to reiterate that sometimes you will start with an entry-level tool and evolve as your business evolves. So like I said, here at AFWAG, we've been tracking our projects on Google Sheets for the most part, and recently adopted Asana, which enables us to automate the project management process on the various things that we work with, which helps the team, and they can tell me if I'm wrong, but helps the team collaborate a bit better and kind of stay on top of their things. It also gives everyone visibility on what we're all working on, because it has really cool features like dashboards and summaries that can be provided at very low effort compared to synthesizing your project from an Excel sheet, for example. So diving into this toolkit, I made an example of some of the tools and platforms that we're using at AFWAG, and also providing the links, that's why they're blue, for the members to, once we share out this presentation, follow the link and see if you're eligible for any of the discounts that are offered here that can make, one, your operations a bit cheaper, but two, give you access to amazing tools that can make your operations even more efficient. Yeah, correct, Abba. There are definitely free versions of some of these things. So you can always also try them, and if they're useful to you, apply for the discounts or otherwise. So one by one, I'll just go through. TechSoup is a platform that enables you to apply for discounted rates on different tools, but also different tech-related services. So like I said, if you want to use a tool and it's a bit complicated, you can always apply for an expert to give you training. They're grant funded to do this, so they provide donated services, which means you can get tech advice for free sometimes, or highly discounted rates, same as they can apply for these discounts for you, or provide you with a catalog of discounted tools so that you can assess and choose what you want and apply for yourself, which is what we do. This link will take you to their site and give you more information about how to do that. We're already signed up as AFWAG with them. So once in a while, we do check in with them to see if they can help us access a new tool or negotiate different rates for tools we might want to use. The second resource here that I think is really helpful in terms of our toolkit as AFWAG that you might consider using or are already using is Google Workspace. Google Workspace, I feel like, is so integrated in everything that we do already. It's not a surprise to introduce as a tool, but I think it's worth mentioning that it has a significant discount for nonprofits. Applying for the discount is not difficult. You'll follow this link that I shared with you, and then it'll just ask you to confirm things like where you're registered, provide your registration certificate so they can verify if you're eligible and how much you're eligible for. I'll say it saved us 3/4 of the cost that we used to spend on the same amount of licenses that we use for the same exact services. So very worthwhile looking at, especially for collaboration and as a central workspace. You may know that Google also offer domain services. So if you have your company website registered there and you have your work emails set up there, I highly, highly recommend looking at it for discounts. Don't tell them I sent you. No, do. This link will send you straight there. Asana, like I mentioned, is a project management tool. It's not the only one. It's the one we're using. So this is, again, an example of our tech stack. You do get a 50% discount if you're eligible for the nonprofit. I think a hot tip I can share is also they use the same company to verify your eligibility. So most times, if you've been verified the first time, you will be easily verified for future discounts on other tools. So worth trying. The discounts depend on the different tool types. Asana's 50%, I think, was the best they could offer, but also really good considering the services that they provide. I see a question, tech experts are rare. How can we support immediate adoption? Okay, so like I said, on TechSoup, the first resource here, if you follow that link and explore, or I could further find the link to where the services are, you can apply for an expert to train you or to provide setup support for your tools. At the same time, a lot of these sites, reshare. Yeah, we will share this. We haven't shared it yet. A lot of these sites also provide very helpful guides to enable you to learn how to do them. And the reason I'm sharing this specific bunch of tools is because they're the ones we found easiest to set up, with the exception of Salesforce. So we provide the links so that you're able to share the links and access the resources directly. For project management tools, like I said before, when you're looking at other tools, if you're looking at Trello or any other type of platform that provides collaboration and project management, it's now a second habit for me to check if they have a nonprofit discount, just in case. So do that when you're researching. The fourth toolkit tech tool that we've used as AFWAG is Microsoft. Like I said, this served us well when we were a smaller team because we did have a nonprofit discount. I think the discount worked for a year into our services, and then it kind of tapers off depending on the size of the team. So always worth exploring, like I said, your pros and cons on which system works best for your organization between Microsoft and Google Workspace, for example. But they do offer the discounted package as well. Then we have Zoom, which we're using today. They also have these discounts. And I think for AFWAG, we leveraged TechSoup to be able to apply the discounts that we're using. But follow the link, and it's an FAQ on how to be able to do this in your individual organizations if you use Zoom. It's worth mentioning that in Google Workspace, Gmeet is free, accommodates large meetings, is a bit less sophisticated in terms of the tools that you can use in Gmeet. But if your conferencing is largely for discussion and not so much for workshopping, it should work really well. Slack is also free. There's a paid version, but on the free version, it would work really well for internal collaboration, less so for external comms. So we have Zoom in our toolkit because we interact a lot externally, and how we collaborate is also very workshoppy. You may have experienced. We do breakout rooms, we do brainstorming, and various other types of applications. So Zoom made sense for us. And those are things you should be thinking about as well.
You're on mute, Cass. Or we can't hear you. No. Can I give, maybe we give, if anybody has questions, Abba, maybe we just give Cass maybe a minute or two to figure out the microphone. I think it's a microphone. Just keep on checking if we can hear you, Cass.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
You're back.
Oh, good.
You're back.
No idea what just happened. I didn't press any buttons.
You
I was.
and Peter exchanged microphones.
It did.
I think, no, let me just go ahead.
Yeah, sorry guys. And it's also okay for when tech is sabotaging you, for you to be surprised by it. It happens. I think I was talking about Salesforce. So here I mean it, I included it as an example because it's what we use today. Like I mentioned, you may choose a tool because you did your research and it made sense and the costs made sense, or the discount or the freeness made sense. However, when you start using the tool, you might realize that, like the comment we had is around, you might need an expert to make it work for you. In our own experience, we found it a little difficult to adopt Salesforce, for example, which is a fantastic tool. I know other organizations use it because we don't have an expert in-house. They do have a program that you can apply for to get consultants to help you, but it's dependent on their own time. And so it can take long to get help, which may or may not work for your organization. So what I will say is, as you think about, again, the type of tool you're using or you want to use, access to their support is something you should think about a lot as well, especially if you're learning how to use the tool for the first time and if you don't have the expertise in-house. The reason I'm running this call today is because I'm fairly tech savvy and I'm still challenged by Salesforce. So when you experience such a situation and there's a fantastic tool, yet it doesn't work for your business, it's also okay to not sink the cost and stick to it no matter what, because you've invested in the cost. I think it's important to go back to your why of why you need it. And for example, if it's taking up way more of your time to figure out how to make it work for you, it's not quite working for you, you find yourself using manual systems and the tool that you're trying to use is taking up a lot of effort, change the tool. And when you're changing the tool, do the research and see if you can get a discount. but change the tool. And so, for example, for our tech toolkit, I've already told you we're shifting away from Microsoft just because Google Workspace does everything we need. And there's change management there with the team, but we're also reviewing our use of Salesforce because it's proving to be more difficult than it could be, as much as it could be super efficient if we could figure out or get the expertise. So it's a shared pain point. It won't be unique to you if you're having difficulty adopting. It's just how quickly can you pivot to a new solution or find someone to help you. So in transparency, Salesforce for us is a pain point, but we're trying to figure out what we'll do there. I'll just mention again, this particular slide has all the links to the resources I've spoken about that we use at AFWAG. Feel free, once you get this presentation, to check out the links, review the tools and see if they're useful to you, but also research and see what tools you need, and then leverage how you can get them at the best cost for yourselves. Any questions here, or should we move on? Oh, and Alba has a very good point. These resources are accessible on our learning portal. So once your profiles are up, you'll also have a lot of extra information at hand. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about how to make your workflow easier using the tech toolkit that you'll have picked. I've tried to provide a use case, 3 use cases of how you might create workflow using these tools that you can consider. And just to say that your workflow will depend on the different processes that you have in your organizations. So for example, if you're planning a project and executing, you might use Google Sheets or any of the project management platforms to assign your tasks and the team and what everybody will be working on. And then you'd, as a process, store the project documents on a shared drive in Google or OneDrive in Microsoft, depending on what you're using. And then you might set up Google Meet to have your project check-ins. This would be one way of taking advantage of a full system, that is Google Workspace, for example, but a good way of showing step 1, 2, 3 of your end-to-end process of how you're going to manage a project using tech to make your operations a bit easier. A different use case would be managing relationships and setting up that workflow. So you collect your data somewhere, could be Google Forms, or any of the other CRMs that we've talked about today. Then you'd use, your Google Calendar or whichever other collaborative calendar you have for your meetings with these partners and donors. Zoom has its own calendar, Google has its own calendar, Teams has its own calendar, so it depends on the platform that you're on. And then using your email tool, Gmail, Outlook, or any other that you use to set up your trackable communication. When you level up and you're able to integrate your workflow, a lot of this is automatable from one space to another without you doing much. So, for example, for Salesforce, you can take your emails and automate them into the platform to create automatic automated communication or communication reminders with your donors and partners. So you don't have to add it to your calendar or your to-do list to remember to do it. Another way of thinking about it is you can also migrate a lot of your emails straight out of your email into a project management platform with a click of a button if you're able to integrate. And I believe as we continue to build out the resources we're sharing, some of these guides will be made available on how to integrate them as we learn as AFWAG as well. A final use case I can share is team collaboration. As a team at AFWAG, we brainstorm a lot together. Many times, this is super simplified, by having a shared Google Doc or Excel sheet, depending on your preference. And then everybody's kind of working on the document at the same time. You get all these ideas and input live in real time, and you walk away with a very rich document. Or you can share the document and people can input at the same time, so you don't have 6, 7 documents coming in. It's all already happening in one place. A different collaboration workflow is what we do every day. We use WhatsApp groups. We have our AFWAG community, a great space to collaborate. We have our internal WhatsApp group as AFWAG, where the team shares a lot. And, you know, being able to consolidate all these documents in wherever it is that you store your things. So Google Drive folders, shared drives that everyone can access and put their things so that it's always accessible to existing and new team members, but also acts as a repository for the organization. Yeah, so there are some use cases. You want to move to the next slide, please? Thank you, which is a recap. Mercy, are we okay for time?
Yes, you're very good on time.
Awesome. I double up as a project manager. So just a quick recap. You are in this session today because you want to learn a bit more about how to simplify your operations by leveraging tech. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to choose your tools based on your needs, but also your budget. And we've also talked about how to take the steps to be able to adopt tech, so that you're not overwhelmed, but also so that you're making the right decisions for your organizations. And in the middle there, in the brown circle, we have those steps, which are look at your needs, choose your tools. If you can, integrate those tools or create your workflow processes. Start small. Don't feel like you have to use something very sophisticated until you're ready. Practice on what's available and easy to use, like Google Workspace, until you build the muscle and are able to move to a niche platform or a specialist platform for the things that you're doing. And then scale. So when you're ready and you're comfortable with the tech, it's working for you, it's working for the team, it's working for your organization, blow it up. Go as sophisticated or as seamless as you want to with the capacity that you have. Next. Oh, where's my exercise slide? Okay, we're going to step back a little bit because I do want to walk you guys through. I need some volunteers who have challenges operationally that want to brainstorm with me on the call in terms of what their challenges and how to pick or build their tech stack for addressing those challenges. So at this point, I'd love 2 or 3 people to volunteer some additional information about challenges that they may be experiencing in the organization. Any takers?
I know Kumbirai was interested. So semi-volunteer, but had agreed to share. Kumbirai, would you be able to come off of mute?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much.
So I will put my camera on off just for a few minutes so that I found somewhere to park because I'm
Okay.
driving at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, I could offer a use case we're trying to solve for in AFWAG as we wait for him to come back, if that's okay.
I think Edson has just raised his hand as well on camera,
Oh,
so I don't, if you want to
amazing.
come off of, perhaps you can just share as we give Kumbirai a chance to come back on. You're on mute, Edson. I think you need to unmute. Yes,
Hello?
you're clear.
I'm okay now. To me, I would request that we have challenges in our organization as far as expertise are concerned. So if you would help us to get us those expertise in shaping us our organization, it would be more better. So it's one of our challenges that we are experiencing in our operations. So I would request that you could help us and get us some resources as far as expertise is concerned. Thank you.
Thanks, Edson. May I ask what the area you're looking at that needs expertise is? What's the challenge?
It's technology.
Technology. You want to be able to adopt technology and you feel you need some expertise to enable you to be able to do that?
Yes.
And what do you want the
Exactly.
technology to do for you? Do you want it for ease of communication or for collaboration in the organization on how you work?
For collaboration and the resource management.
And resource management. And
Yeah.
and resource management, you mean time and people?
Yeah, people, exactly people.
Okay. Okay. Right. So it sounds like you need access to some tools that help you, one, streamline your communication, but also
Yeah.
enable you to manage your people, correct? And could I ask what your organization does?
My organization work with girls, women, work with education, health, work with climate change, livelihood and environment.
Livelihood empowerment. So you do training?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So in terms of being able to access the tools, first you'd be looking at what tools can you put together to make it easier for your teams to communicate with each other. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Are you
Tools,
using, sorry?
the tools to be put together to make communication right.
To make it right. Okay. Are you currently using WhatsApp with your team?
Right now, yeah, I'm using it with some, but I don't know whether they are connected.
Oh,
But I'm
okay.
using,
Yeah. Because of their devices?
yeah, because of the devices, they may not be connected.
I see. Okay. And how, outside of WhatsApp, how do you communicate with them? You call them, you talk to them on phone and kind of document what they're doing, and then you come back and review what needs to be done?
Exactly.
Okay. So, one, it would be really easy if they were able to WhatsApp, but I hear the challenge, because access to the actual devices is the first step of being able to address the technology challenge. And because right now we're talking about how to leverage the different tools to be able to help you streamline your operations a little bit, I think your workflow will be a hybrid of a manual and an automated process, where you may have a center point within your organization that's responsible for speaking to the team and documenting what needs to be done. And then this document, do you already use Google, Gmail, and things?
I use Google and Gmail. I use them.
You use them, okay. So your workflow might look like you have let's say a person responsible for collecting the information from the team, right? In a standardized way. So this person will be speaking to the team members that are not accessible on WhatsApp. And maybe you do have some people who are accessible on WhatsApp. So you want to build a flow where the person responsible for communicating with those who are not on WhatsApp is also able to share the information with everybody else. So they could use Google Drive, like I mentioned, to have a shared document that these updates would be going on. And then everybody else who can access the tech is also using the same document, and you have all your information coming into one place for updating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one way. But in terms of managing your team resources, your people, your databases, right now, are you using Excel or Google Sheets?
No, I'm not using it.
Okay. So part of what we're providing on this portal that we're talking about from AFWAG has some guides on how you can develop systems in your organization fairly straightforwardly, but we're available to guide. Like building out your database of, let's say, people who are responsible for the different areas you've spoken about as your organization, who's training, if you have a calendar of events, all these can be built out on Google Sheets, which is shareable. So you'd provide the link to your teammates and whoever's doing this work for you straight from your tool. So that's an easy way of, one, being able to track and being able to get their updates or being able to centralize their resources.
Yes.
As you go along, it might then become, your Excel sheet is getting much longer and you need an easier way of doing that. So then you might research and find maybe Notion would be a good place to move your database to, because it's for the most part free to use to a large extent, and also easy to use. So we'll include that link for you to have a look. The same,
Exactly.
yeah, kind of works the same as these other resources on Google Workspace, just that you can do a lot more things on it as one place rather than have